All talk top 100 free agents. George Pickens, number one, had a great year. He's third in yards per reception. He had 9 touchdowns, 137 targets, and really stepped up when CD was out. Now, Nick, he might get franchise tagged. Cowboys might trade him. What should Dallas do with George Pickens?
Not have traded for him.
Oh.
This is why you don't trade for George Pickens if you don't have a plan. Like, the Cowboys, I think, correctly believe, the history of teams that have 2 $30 million a year receivers, it's one team, and they have been arguably the most underachieving team of the last few years, the Cincinnati Bengals. So that's not great. And the history of paying guys who, before they get paid, have, let's call it, eclectic personalities is scattered throughout NFL history. So that's a concern, which is why, in my opinion, trading for him was so short-sighted. Because if the season he just had, Brew, was not enough for you to be like, you know what? We are paying him what he is going to want to be paid, then nothing would have been enough.
Right.
Like, he literally had a better year than anyone could have realistically anticipated, and they're still like, let's do this year to year, and he does not strike me as the type of guy that is going to be like, oh, where do I sign the franchise tag? When's the offseason program? I'll be first in line there, fellas. And so it was very obvious this stumbling block was ahead, and they barreled towards it anyway.
A month or two ago, and even before that, franchise tagging. That's what you do. Now, I'm to the point where I'm like, trade him or whatever, let him walk. Use the money you would have paid him, or if you have to trade, try to get Max Crosby.
Oh.
Get Max Crosby or some other great defensive player. I know they had Micah Parsons, they blew it. Get a great defensive player or a couple with the money you would take to sign George Pickens.
Let's start with the obvious. The Dallas Cowboys went out and acquired George Pickens, and they essentially got him for minimal compensation. At the time of that move, nobody anticipated their defense would completely fall apart. They constructed what turned out to be a pretty spectacular offense. So, if their defense had been merely adequate, just good enough to complement the offensive firepower, then acquiring George Pickens, even if it ultimately ended up being a one-year rental, would have been viewed as a brilliant strategic play. The Cowboys would have positioned themselves as a top-tier franchise in the NFL. That's how close they were. They would have been legitimate contenders with an elite offense. I mean, even Nick Wright, who's not exactly known for excessive Cowboys praise, was visibly impressed with how potent that offense looked. He acknowledged that offense was so dynamic that regardless of other shortcomings, this Cowboys team had a legitimate chance in any game. George Pickens is a substantial reason for that assessment. Therefore, acquiring George Pickens was a sound decision. Yes, full stop. Before I go any deeper into this analysis, I need to address the Dallas Cowboys fans directly. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and watch the full-length video. When you subscribe while watching, when you engage with the content, it makes a genuine difference. Views increase significantly. Subscriber counts grow. It's an amazing thing to witness. And I can't emphasize this enough. This isn't simply about chasing views for the sake of numbers. It's not about obsessing over subscriber counts. It's about creating content that people genuinely want to consume. Content that sparks authentic discussion, that allows me to keep producing the most balanced, unbiased Dallas Cowboys analysis possible. The Cowboys are another one of those franchises, similar to what I discussed with Chiefs fans recently, where you encounter such extreme swings in narrative. It's either the Cowboys are winning the Super Bowl, they're the most dangerous team in the NFL, or it's relentless trolling about how they're supposedly the worst organization in professional football. Here, you actually get a real, grounded, unbiased perspective. You may not love everything you hear, because I'm not here to simply cheerlead for the sake of popularity. But at minimum, it will be authentic. It will be grounded in reality. It will reflect how I genuinely see the situation. Now let me walk through my evolving thinking on this. I've been discussing the Cowboys George Pickens, and their strategic direction quite a bit recently. And I've reached a point in my analysis where I'm embracing a particular philosophy. The reality is this. You have a limited window remaining with Dak Prescott in his prime. That's just the truth. It's not negative, it's not optimistic, it's factual. Father Time remains undefeated, and quarter hips have finite timelines. So, given that reality, I'm at a place where I say, take your swing. Go for it. One thing Jerry Jones has consistently demonstrated is an ability to draft talent. Whatever criticism you might level at his management style, his drafting track record speaks for itself. So build me the best possible offense. Construct an elite, top-tier unit. I believe you have an elite quarterback in this league. I believe you have a top offensive mind guiding that side of the ball. Maybe he's not Andy Reid, but he's certainly not some incompetent coordinator either. You have CeeDee Lamb. You now have George Pickens. You have a running game that can be effective. You're fortifying that offensive line. You're drafting young prospects to develop. You've already acquired some defensive pieces. Draft more young defenders in the upcoming draft, then get after it. Draft impact players wherever you can find them. Find value in free agency. Those under-the-radar acquisitions that don't break the bank, but contribute meaningfully. Let's use the Philadelphia Eagles as another frame of reference. And I acknowledge that Cowboys fans aren't exactly thrilled to hear that comparison. But it is what it is. The Eagles went out and drafted Quinyon Mitchell. They drafted Cooper DeJean. They got Zach Bond for essentially nothing, a value signing that paid enormous dividends. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson didn't shatter their cap. They brought in veterans, identified projects they believed they could develop, drafted young talent, and signed Saquon Barkley. There you go. That's the template. You have to identify value in free agency while absolutely nailing your draft picks. Now, people keep using the Cincinnati Bengals as some kind of cautionary example. That comparison irritates me, frankly. Using the Bengals as a model hasn't worked out for them for specific reasons. 1, Joe Burrow can't seem to stay healthy. 2, they've demonstrated an inability to draft effectively, to build a competent defense, to construct a reliable offensive line. The Eagles, by contrast, paid Devonta Smith. They paid Saquon Barkley. They paid A.J. Brown. They found ways to make it work financially. Now, if they hadn't drafted and developed defensive players like Cooper DeJean, Quinyon Mitchell, if they hadn't found Bond for cheap, then they don't win the Super Bowl. It's that simple. You have to check the boxes. You have to execute across multiple fronts. But at this point, for the Cowboys, the calculus is straightforward. Best case scenario, and I'm not going to throw out specific numbers or timelines, but best case scenario, you have Dak in his prime for a handful more seasons. Give him everything he needs to succeed offensively. Everything he could possibly want to light up scoreboards. Surround him with weapons. Protect him up front. And if you still can't find a way to marginally improve your defense, whether through free agency acquisitions or draft selections, well, then you never had a realistic chance anyway. So what's the alternative? Move on from George Pickens? And then what? Go get Max Crosby instead? I don't even know what that strategy looks like at this point. You'd be going in circles. You'd be repeating patterns that haven't worked in the past, that haven't gotten you anywhere meaningful. This way, with Pickens, you're actually taking a bit of a swing. You're trusting your ability to do what you've historically done well. Draft great talent. Say whatever you want about Jerry Jones, but he's consistently demonstrated an ability to identify and acquire high-quality talent through the draft. Year after year, the Cowboys add promising young players. And here's the thing. They've built consistently competitive teams. Everyone always tells me, oh, they won 12 games this year and that year, they're always good during the regular season, blah, blah, blah. And my response is always, who do you think is constructing these teams? Jerry Jones. He's the architect. You can't have it both ways. You can't simultaneously insist he's terrible and incompetent while acknowledging he builds teams that are consistently among the best in the NFL during the regular season. So again, which is it? The playoff shortcomings are real, obviously. They've come up short in January repeatedly. But often when they fall short, the offense stalls. Dak has his moments of struggle. So what happens if you're stacked on offense? What happens if you give him everything he could ever ask for? What happens then? Remember when they beat the Kansas City Chiefs? I understand the Chiefs weren't the same dominant force last season, but they still had juice. They still had firepower. They're still a difficult opponent. Who showed up in that game? Who elevated their performance? Was it an amazing defensive stop that secured that victory? No. It was the offense. So all you need to do is continue that offensive momentum and ensure the defense isn't a complete liability. You don't need a Max Crosby to accomplish that. Obviously, having a player of his caliber would help. That's undeniable. Having Max Crosby would be fantastic, but it's not the only path. I just think you have to believe in Dak. You have to double down, triple down, quadruple down on your franchise quarterback. So do it on paper and on the field. Commit to him financially and strategically. Then make sure your defense is at least adequate. Nail the draft. Find value in free agency. And the rest is up to the men wearing the uniforms on game day. Those are simply my perspectives on the matter. I'm genuinely interested in hearing your thoughts. What's your assessment of the Dallas Cowboys? What should they do with George Pickens? Do they keep him long-term? Do they move on? Sign and trade? Franchise tag? The one approach I absolutely don't understand is simply applying the franchise tag and then acting like business as usual, as if that resolves anything. That doesn't make sense to me, but I want to know what you think. Share your opinions in the comments. I read every single response, whether you agree with my analysis or you're ready to challenge it. Either way, let's generate some meaningful discussion. Let's engage in some spirited debates. But most importantly, let's keep it enjoyable. And please, if you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel. We're cultivating an incredible community here, and I genuinely value having you as part of it. My goal is to build something that fosters genuine connection, something we're all truly excited to contribute to. I believe we're making substantial progress toward that vision. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. It significantly enhances visibility and supports the algorithm. Thank you so much for your continued support. I'll see you in the next one.